I used to think that, and I used to really, really believe that it's better to be a pirate than to join the Navy. And for a long time, and still there's a part of me that does believe that, like that ultimate freedom of being off on your own and being able to make your own decisions and decide what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. It's pretty great. Now, that particular moniker, that little phrase comes from a time when it was when I was working at 6th Division, and we were kind of pirates, but really we were just an unorganized, smaller Navy. We were still a Navy. But when I got a real taste of pirate life, when I was out on my own, doing my own thing, that's when I really sort of understood what that freedom actually was. And I'll tell you what, I lived it up. It was glorious. I could do anything that I wanted. And the reason I was able to train Muay Thai and fight as much as I did was because I didn't have to work. And I would work just enough to make the bills, to make the money to pay the bills so that I could keep training. That's essentially what it was. And it was great. You know what I mean? And I there's a part of me that misses that. But that's the same part of me that just misses training. So it's that's not really the point that I'm trying to make. But anyway, but something happened recently, which is almost impossible to really explain unless you've been through it. So I don't even know how to really express this except in the words that I'm about to use. I think what I never really comprehended or never really allowed myself to think or really confront were all the downsides of being a pirate. Like, and I like this metaphor because the Navy, yes, you're restricted. You have to follow orders. There's a regiment. There's like very specific things that you have to do, and there's no choices. But you also get regular meals, you get hot showers, you get R&R, you get a steady paycheck. None of those things are guaranteed when you're a pirate. Now, the payoff when you're a pirate sometimes is bigger, sometimes is smaller. And that's a lot of the trade-off, right? You're trading off the consistency for, at least that was my experience. You trade off the consistency of something that you can rely on for the freedom combined with the possibility of something bigger. But what I realized about myself is that the cost of being a pirate is not worth what you get from it. Let me rephrase. For me, the cost of that freedom was not worth the freedom itself. And what I realized was that I wasn't actually as free as I thought I was. I wasn't actually free at all. In fact, I was more beholden to my business than I was when it wasn't my business. But the unfortunate thing is that the business wouldn't tell me that until it was too late. My business wouldn't tell me, oh, you need to work, you need to show up on time to work, until I didn't get paid. My business wouldn't tell me, you need to make sure you follow up on these invoices because it's your job, until I didn't have money in my bank account and I couldn't go buy groceries, couldn't pay my car payment. And my bank account wouldn't tell me, hey, if you don't show up and do these things, then you're not going to get the things that you're looking for. That's just what happened, right? And other things too, like my business didn't tell me that I needed to pay my taxes. And so after a while, you realize that that's a problem and you got to figure that out. And, I think I didn't want to deal with any of those kinds of things. So I just didn't think about them. And I'm not at all saying that that's how everybody approaches it, because I'm sure I'm just an idiot. But something happened recently that I fought tooth and nail, because I didn't believe going into this experience that this could possibly happen to me. because I was so strongly committed to the idea that freedom was the ultimate goal. Freedom, as I defined it in my own head, was the ultimate goal, the ultimate sort of achievement. It was the thing that we were looking for. And I made a decision that I thought was going against that, to take a job. I took a job with some people that I'd known from before, and started working. And immediately I started to push against, just like internally and mentally, I started to push against the feeling of like being part of a thing that was bigger than me, because I wanted to maintain my independence. I wanted to maintain that I was my own person and I made my own decisions. And to their benefit, and if either of you happen to be watching this, to your benefit, there was room for me to do that. And I think there's so much room for me to do that I don't think anybody noticed. I'm sure there was a little bit of noticing of the attitude that I was bringing to things, but I was at least doing good work. So we could probably look back at overlook some of the bad attitude stuff that I had. But I was so opposed to the idea that I was going to give in and become part of something else, because I was so wrapped up, my own self-identity was so wrapped up in this idea of freedom and this idea of depending only on myself, that the idea of joining myself to something else was like foreign and almost like I had a bad taste in my mouth. Slowly but surely, over time, as I continued to give myself to my work, because among other things, regardless of how I feel about anything else, I have to do things right. I have to do things well. I can't not. That's a part of me that sometimes is really annoying, I'll be honest with you. But, in a lot of cases, it ends up serving me pretty well. But slowly but surely, as I began to give myself to the work, as I began to really dive in and like understand what was happening, I started to realize that I couldn't actually do I couldn't maintain the level of excellence that I needed in my work without giving up some of these things, some of these thoughts, some of these independent sort of kicking. The phrase that always comes to mind is kicking against the pricks, which is a biblical phrase that, anyway, there's a whole joke behind that with me and my dad. But anyway, just no, don't, I'm not giving in. I'm not conforming. I'm not joining the Borg or whatever that, what's the word? I'm not assimilating, right? And slowly but surely, as I allowed myself to, as I realized and confronted the fact that, like, in order for me to do the work that at the level that I want to do it, I have to be okay with, letting myself get a little bit more indoctrinated, letting myself become part of this thing. And it felt like it was overnight, because my mindset shifted from one to the next, because I was resisting. And then one day it became clear in my soul. It wasn't like a thought that clicked. It just became clear in my soul that weight that I had allowed to keep me from really accepting my position and really accepting and diving in full and jumping in, both feet into this organization that I'm a part of, it almost felt like shackles were lifted. And I realized that what I had been doing the whole time in holding on so tightly to freedom, I was actually holding on to the thing that was keeping me free. And I wasn't allowing myself to actually be free. And I don't know how to explain that other than just using the words that I just used. But that it's such an interesting transition. And I have worked at every level of everywhere from contractor to full employee to owning businesses, and back and forth. And I had never had an experience like this. And what it showed me was that the idea that I had about freedom in the way that I was thinking about it being the most important thing, I needed to go through that experience so that I could understand that it's actually not, at least not the way that I was thinking about it. And that freedom actually is given in interesting and unknown ways. When you come at everything from, I need to protect my freedom, when I was coming at everything from, I need to protect my freedom, I wasn't able to see the vast amounts of freedom and opportunity that were right in front of me. And now I'm in a position where all of the things that I wanted to be able to do in my freedom that I was not free to do because I had not aligned myself in any way with resource generating organizations or any of that kind of stuff, meaning I couldn't do what I wanted to do because I didn't have the resources to do what I wanted to do. That's what's called being shackled by your own limiting beliefs. And I don't mean that in the woo-woo sense. I mean that in my belief was that I needed to be free. And in order to be free, I needed to not have a boss. And in order to not have a boss, I needed to always be distancing myself from an opportunity or from a situation where somebody else was over me and that I was reporting to them. And when it clicked, I realized the only way that I'm going to get what I want and be free to do the things that I want is if I allow the opportunities that are in front of me to actually present themselves and I accept them with open arms. And when that shifted for me, a whole world of opportunities started to open up. I began I had already been doing really, really good work at this company, but my understanding and involvement and the feedback that I get from my coworkers, my colleagues, and the people that are my bosses, it skyrocketed. And it's because I'm no longer spending so much energy trying to keep myself one foot out, but rather I've got all my energy focused on the stuff that I'm doing. And here's the great part about it. The things that I'm doing all day, every day, are the things that I love doing, and they are the things that I'm good at. And I was not free to do those things to the extent that I am free to do them now before, because in order for me to feed myself before, I had to spend 60% of my time dealing with clients that didn't know what they wanted, 40% of my time following up on invoices that hadn't gotten paid, 20% of my time following up on new clients, and 5, maybe 10% of my time doing a portion or a fraction of the type of work that I wanted to be doing, but I couldn't because of the sandbox that I was playing in. And now I spend none of my time following up on invoices. I spend none of my time dealing with clients that don't know what they want. I spend none of my time finding new clients. I spend all of my time solving problems, using my creativity, and creating amazing stuff. And I've never been more fulfilled. It's funny. Like I would never have, if I was giving this speech to myself 6 years ago, I would not have believed it. I would scoff and say, no, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's the situation. I don't know if the reason why I was able to have that cathartic moment is because I had been through the pirate life and I had really understood and like slogged through the negative aspects of that to really appreciate the positives of what I have now. And my interactions with other people lead me to believe that that's true, that you actually do kind of need to go through that process to really appreciate what you have when you work at an organization that has the resources to allow you to do the things that you want to do. But I just thought it was very interesting, and it's an important thing for me to share that I was so convinced with every fiber of my being that it's better to be a pirate than to join the Navy. But it turns out it's way better to be a Navy SEAL.